Hi students, I'm Abhishek from Vidyaguru, and in today's video I'm going to teach you some really interesting tricks, some time-saving methods for finding the square roots of perfect squares. Apart from that, I will teach you a universal trick. I will teach you a universal trick for finding the squares of numbers. In the previous videos, I have told you some tricks for finding the squares of typical numbers, but today I will teach you a universal trick. But before that, let's figure out what we have to discuss today. We have to discuss square roots first and then squares. Sure. And you can see that this video is in complete English. If you like the video, please press the like button for sure. Share the video with your friends and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. As you can see, this video, which is in complete English medium, it has been shot especially for our students from South India, for our students from Northeast India, those whom we feel don't understand Hindi very well. For them we record such special separate videos. Sure. So let's get started with square roots first. And please note that these are square roots of perfect squares. In a later video, I will tell you about the square roots of imperfect squares also. But right now, please note, all the examples I am going to take are going to be perfect squares. Sure. So the first question is square root of 5041. But before I teach you the shortcuts, you have to do some groundwork. You have to look at, what is the units digit? The most important aspect, students, is to understand the concept of units digit. So when I have one square, it gives me 1. 1 square is 1, 2 square is 4, 3 square is 9. What I am discussing here is basically, the squares of first 10 numbers. Why the squares of first 10 numbers? Because when you have, students, when you have the square of 4, which is 16, you can see that if a perfect square ends in 6, students, if a perfect square ends in 6, then its square root, students, then its square root can end in two possible ways. Its square root can end in either 4 or its square root can end in 6. Because even 6 square gives me 36. 36, look at the units digit of 36. The units digit is 6. Sure. So listen to me very carefully. If you have a perfect square like 16 or 36 which end in 6, then you have two possibilities, that the square root can end in either 4 or 6. Sure. Similarly, if you have a perfect square which ends in 9, students, if you have a perfect square which ends in 9, then there are two possibilities. The square root can end in either 3 or the square root can end in 7. Why? Because look at the square of 3. 3 square is 9 and 7 square is 49. So this 9 at the end, students, this 9 at the end can be there because of only two possibilities. What are those two possibilities? Those two possibilities are that the square root can end in either 3 or 7. Sure. One interesting thing about these possibilities is that when you add them, students, when you add them, they will give you a perfect 10. They will give you a perfect 10. Sure. 3 and 7, they gave you a perfect 10. Students, 3 and 7, they gave you a perfect 10. Sure. Similarly, look at the other pair, 4 and 6. 4 and 6, they also gave you a perfect 10. Sure. So you may not even have to memorize both the pairs. Now let's see how we can use this particular concept. I have 5041. Look at the units digit. The units digit, students, is 1. The units digit is 1. Sure. And look at this table once again. Where does 1 appear? Students, where does 1 appear? 1 appears at the top and 1 appears in the square of 9. Sure. So 1 can appear in two forms, because of there being 9 or there being 1, because of there being 9 or there being 1 in the units digit of the square root. Sure. So two possibilities are there. The units digit, students, the units digit can be either 1 or 9. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write both the possibilities. I'm going to write 1 and I'm going to write 9. These are the two possibilities of the units digit. Sure? And now whenever you are finding the square root, students, whenever you are finding the square root, you have to make pairs of 2. You have to make pairs of 2 starting from the right. So I make pairs of 2. Sure? The first pair from the right is 41. Sure? And the next pair is 50. The next pair is 50. I have to look at 50 because from this pair I have already decided that there has to be either 1 or 9. So I'm going to decide now the first digit. The second digit is somewhat decided. The second digit of the square root will be either 1 or 9. Now let's look at this 50. So I know that 7 square is 49. I'm thinking about the perfect squares. 7 square gives me 49 and students 8 square gives me 64. Sure? But 64 will overshoot 50. 64 is a bigger value as compared to 50, so it will overshoot. That means I cannot have 8 as the first digit. I cannot have 8 as the first digit because 64 overshoots 50. So I have to go with 7. Students, I have to go with 7. 7 is the first digit. 7 is the first digit. Now I have to decide about whether to place 1 or 9 as the units digit. Again, I will look at this 50 and I am going to compare it with 49 and 64. So when I have 50, students, when I have 50, I know that 50 is closer to 49. What you need to do is compare. Students, is compare this 50 with the preceding perfect square and the succeeding perfect square. The preceding perfect square was 49. The succeeding perfect square is 64. 50 is closer to what? 50 is closer to the preceding value. That means the smaller value. And what is the smaller value? The smaller value is 49. This 50 is closer to the smaller value. If it is closer to the smaller value, pick the smaller digit. Pick the smaller digit, and out of 1 or 9, which is the smaller digit? The smaller digit is 1. So the answer turns out to be 71. The answer turns out to be 71. Sure? So 71 is the square root of 5041. Now let's look at 7569. I will be making pairs from the right. Pairs of 2. Sure? Now I have, students, 9 in the units digit. I have 9 in the units digit. So 9 can appear because of 3, because 3 square is 9, or 7 square is 49. So in the units digit I can have either 3 or 7. Either 3 or 7. And please remember, 3 and 7, they will make a perfect 10. They will make a perfect 10. Similarly, in the previous example, even in the previous example, 1 and 9 made a perfect 10. So if I can think of one possibility that, okay, I know 3 square ends in 9. So one possibility is 3. Then automatically the other possibility will be 7, because 3 and 7 will give me 10. You have to think of a perfect 10. Sure? I know that the units digit will be either 3 or 7. Now I told you I'm making pairs of 2. So the other pair is what, students? The other pair is 75. And please note it carefully. You are making pairs from the right hand side. Now think about this 75. Students, think about this 75. Think about the perfect squares before 75 and after 75. 8 square is 64 and 9 square is 81. Students, 9 square is 81. 81 will overshoot. 81 will overshoot 75. So I will have to go with 8. I will have to go with 8 because 81 will overshoot. So I cannot have 9. Got the point? So the first digit is 8. Students, the first digit is 8. Now I need to decide whether 3 or 7 is going to be the second digit. So what was the mantra? What was the method? I will compare 75. Students, I will compare 75 and I will see whether it is closer to 81 or 64. So the gap between, students, the gap between 75 and 64 is what? The gap is 11. The gap is 11. Sure, the gap between 75 and 81 is only 6. So where is the gap less? The gap is less in this case. In the case of the bigger value. Students, 81 is the bigger value, 64 is the smaller value. So 75, students, 75 is closer to the bigger value. It is closer to the bigger value. So I will choose the bigger value. Out of 3 and 7, I choose the bigger value 7. So the second digit becomes 7. The answer turns out to be a wonderful 87. Shortcuts which will help you a lot. All you require is a little bit of practice. Now let's do a little bit of more practice. Let's look at the units digit. Students, how can 4 appear? 4 can appear, 2 square is 4. 2 square is 4. Sure. So I know if one possibility of the unit digit is 2, then the other has to be 8. The other has to be 8. 2 and 8 give me a perfect 10. You can even check it. 2 square ends in 4. 2 square is 4. Even 8 square, students, even 8 square gives me a 64. 64, that means the 4 is there. The 4 can be there in 2 possible ways. It can be either 2 or 8 in the units place. Sure. Now I'm making pairs. Now I'm making pairs of 2. Students, now I'm making pairs of 2. So I have made a pair of 2, 24. Sure. Now I'm left with what? I'm left with 139. Students, I'm left with 139. I have made a pair of 2 from the right. I have left 2 digits from the right. Now 139. Think of 139. Students, 11 square is 121. 11 square is 121. 12 square is 144. 12 square is 144. So I can clearly see, students, I can clearly see the remaining digits 139. They fall between what? They fall between 121 and 144. So 139. But I know 144 will overshoot 139. So I will have to go with 11. I will have to go with 11 because 144 will overshoot. So I cannot use 12. I cannot use 12. So I use 11. So the first 2 digits I have with me, the first 2 digits are 11. Now I have to decide between 2 and 8. Between 2 and 8. So 139, what is it closer to? Is it closer to the smaller value 121 or is it closer to the bigger value 144? Students, we can clearly see it is closer to the bigger value because the gap between 139 and 144 is only 5. The gap between 139 and 121 is 18. So the gap is less out here. 139 is closer to 144, which is the bigger value. So I will have to go with the bigger value. And what is the bigger value? Between 2 and 8, the bigger value is 8. So the answer turns out to be 118. Students, the answer turns out to be 118. Now in the comment section, you have to tell me, students, in the comment section, you have to tell me the square root of 15376. Okay, I'm giving you certain clues, certain pointers. 76. Don't worry about the 76. The important thing is 6. 6 can be there because of 4 or it can be because of 6 in the units place. Why? Because 4 square is 16 and 6 square is 36. So the 6 can appear because of 4 or 6. Because of 4 or 6 in the units place. Sure. I have selected the 2 from the right. Now I'm left with what, students? Now I'm left with 153. Now I'm left with 153. Think of those perfect squares. Think of those perfect squares between which 153 is going to lie. Sure. So 153 is going to lie somewhere between 144, which is the square of 12, and 169, which is the square of 13. Sure. That means you have to check. You have to check for these two perfect square values, 144 and 169. I've given you some pointers. Now you have to give me the exact value. That is the assignment I'm giving you. Sure? That is for the square roots. You have to give me the exact value. Now I'm going to teach you what? A universal trick for finding the squares. And that is going to be very interesting. A useful, very useful trick. I have to find the square of 79. Students, now listen to me carefully. What I am going to do is I am going to write the square of 7 and the square of 9. Those will be the two extreme values. Those will be the two extreme values. 7 square is what? 7 square is 49. 9 square is what? 9 square is 81. Those are the two values to the left and to the right. Sure? That means break the digit, break the number, and of course think of the squares. So 7 square is 49, 9 square is 81. In the middle, what are you going to write? Very simple. The multiplication, the product of these two numbers and the power. 7 nines are 63, 63 twos are. Even this 2 will be multiplied. This 2 will be multiplied. The power is 2. 7 nines are 63, 63 twos are 126. So 126, that's the middle value. Sure? Now very simple. I'm going to keep using, I'm going to use the units digit and just carry forward the other numbers. The units digit is 1. I write it. 8 is carried forward. 8 is carried forward. So 126 and 8 will give me 134. 126 and 8 will give me 134. I will use the units digit. I will write it over here. Sure. Now the 13 will be carried forward. 13 will be carried forward. 13 gets carried forward. 49 and 13. 49 and 13 is what? 49 and 13 is 62. Sure. There is nothing to carry forward to. Sure. We have reached the end. There is no other value which is before 62. So I will have to write this complete 62. This is the final value. It has to be written in whole. So 6241. 62 comes as it is. 6241 is the answer. Got it? Sure. So 6241 is the square of 79. It can be applied almost everywhere. So 126 square. Let's quickly go about it. 6 square. Students, 6 square is what? 6 square is 36. The square of 12. Students, the square of 12. 12 square is 144. 12 square is 144. Now, those are the two extreme values. In between, what am I going to do? I'm going to multiply. 12 with 6. So 12 6 are 72. 12 6 are 72. Then multiplied with the power. 12 6 are 72. 72 into 2. It becomes 144. So coincidentally, even the middle value is 144. Got the point? Now, very simply, I'm going to keep using the units digit. So I use the 6. It was the units digit. 3 is carried forward. 3 gets added. 3 gets added to 144. It gives me 147. I use the units digit 7. And I carry forward this 14. This 14 is carried forward, gets added to 144. So 144 and 14, it gives me 158. Now I have reached the end. There is nothing prior to 158. I will have to use it as whole. So 15876. Students, 15876. That becomes the square of 126. Now let's take up a couple of more examples. Now 87 square. 87 square. 7 square is what, students? The 7 square is 49. What is the other digit? The other digit is 8. 8 square is 64. In between, what am I going to do? Multiply the numbers and then multiply it with 2. 8 sevens are 56. 56 into 2 gives me 112. Sure? Now very simply I'm going to use the units digit. 9 is used, 4 gets carried forward. 4 gets carried forward. 112 and 4 gives me 116. Gives me 116. I use the 6, which is the units digit. Sure? 11 gets carried forward. 11 gets carried forward. 64 and 11. Student, 64 and 11. It gives me what? It gives me 75. Now I've reached the end. There is nothing to carry forward to. So the 75 will be written as a whole. So 7569. Student, 7569. That's the answer. That's the answer. And now you have to tell me in the comment box the square of 224. Students, what is going to be the square of 224? That's the question for today. So now here I'm wrapping it up, and if you haven't understood anything, then rewatch the video because these tricks are going to be quite useful. And in case you haven't understood or noticed till now, we have launched our live classes as well, and our online video courses are already there. So whichever suits you, you can sign up for them. Thank you so much.